The Lycan King expected a cold marriage. Then she changed everything. He married her for power, not love. She was meant to stay silent and obey. But the moment she spoke, something inside the coldest king began to crack. A marriage built on control slowly turned into something dangerous, because the one girl no one expected to survive became the only one he could not ignore. And in a kingdom ruled by fear, she became the one thing he could not control. Subscribe now if you enjoy intense werewolf romance stories with strong emotional tension. Drop a comment, Cold King, if you think he will never change, or Changed, if you think she will break his walls. Share this story with someone who loves dark romance and powerful character transformation. He did not look at her. Not when she entered the hall. Not when the heavy doors shut behind her with a sound that echoed like a warning. Not when the entire court shifted, silently turning their attention toward the girl who had just stepped into a life she never chose. King Kale Draven sat on his throne as if carved from stone. Still, unmoved, untouched. This was not a wedding. This was an arrangement. A political move designed to strengthen alliances and silence threats before they could rise. And Elena Whitmore knew it. She knew it the moment she crossed the threshold into his world. The air felt different here, heavier, like something unseen pressed against her chest, making each breath slightly harder than the last. The hall stretched wide and high, built from dark stone that absorbed light instead of reflecting it. Tall pillars reached toward the ceiling, casting long shadows that seemed to move with every flicker of flame from the torches lining the walls. Nobles stood in perfect formation, dressed in dark colors, faces blank, eyes sharp, watching, always watching. Warriors lined the edges of the room, silent, ready. Every one of them carried the same presence. Control, discipline, fear. No music played, no voices whispered. No one dared break the silence, because this was not a celebration. This was submission disguised as ceremony. Elena took another step forward, then another. Her movements were slow, careful, controlled. Her gown flowed behind her, soft white fabric against the hard black stone. It looked out of place here. Too gentle, too pure for a place built on power and dominance. She felt it. The difference. The way she stood out. The way every eye measured her. Waiting, judging, expecting weakness. But she did not lower her head. She did not rush. She did not shrink. She moved forward like she belonged here. Even if she didn't. Especially because she didn't. At the far end of the hall sat the man who now held her future in his hands. King Kale Draven. The Lycan King, a name that carried weight across kingdoms, a name spoken carefully, if spoken at all. He ruled with strength, with silence, with absolute control. Stories about him were not told as entertainment. They were told as warnings. He does not forgive. He does not hesitate. He does not feel. Elena had heard all of them. And as she walked closer, she believed every single one, because he had not even looked at her. The priest stepped forward, breaking the silence with a voice that felt too loud in the stillness. Do you, King Kale Draven, accept this union under blood law? The question hung in the air. No one moved. No one breathed. Even the flames seemed to steady. Kale did not answer immediately. Not because he hesitated. Because he didn't need to rush. Time bent around him. The room waited on him. The world waited on him. Then finally, I accept. The words fell flat. Cold. Empty. Final. No emotion. No warmth. No acknowledgement of the girl standing before him. Just acceptance. Obligation. Control. The priest turned. Elena Whitmore, do you accept? I accept. She cut him off. Clean. Immediate. Certain. The shift was instant. Heads turned. Eyes widened. A ripple moved through the court like a silent wave. She had spoken too fast. Too firm. Too sure. Not how a bride should speak in front of a king like Kale Draven. And for the first time, he looked at her. The moment stretched. His gaze locked onto hers with precision. Sharp. Measuring. Unforgiving. He did not blink. He did not soften. He studied her like she was something that did not fit into place. Something unpredictable. Something that could not be controlled. Elena felt it. The weight of his attention. It hit harder than anything else in the room. Her pulse quickened. Her breath tightened. But her eyes did not move. She held his gaze. That was the moment everything shifted. Small, almost invisible, but real. Something flickered in his expression. Gone in a second. But there, he stood, and the entire hall bowed instantly. Heads lowered, eyes dropped, bodies bent in submission. Power filled the space like a force that could not be resisted. Kale stepped down from his throne, each movement slow, deliberate, controlled. He walked toward her. The sound of his steps echoed through the hall, each one landing with quiet authority. Closer, closer, until he stood directly in front of her. The difference between them was clear now. Height, presence, power. It felt like standing in front of something unmovable. "You speak quickly," he said. His voice was low, calm, cold. Elena did not hesitate. "I prefer truth." Silence followed, heavy, pressing. "Truth," he repeated. His eyes did not leave her. Searching, testing, then he turned away. "Good," he said. "You will need it." And just like that, it was over. The ceremony ended with no celebration. No music. No joy. Just signatures. Blood seal. Witness. Done. Queen Elena. The title carried weight, but no warmth. The doors to the royal chamber closed behind her with a deep, final sound. The silence inside was different. Not watched. Not pressured. Just empty. Elena stood still for a moment, breathing, adjusting, taking in the space. The room was large, built from the same dark stone, high ceilings, tall windows that let in cold light, minimal furniture, everything precise, everything controlled, no softness, no comfort. This was not a place meant for rest. It was a place meant for presence, for authority, for distance. It felt like him. She took a slow step forward, then another. Her fingers brushed lightly against the edge of a table. Cold. Everything here felt cold. "You're shaking." The voice came from behind her. Calm. Measured. She froze. She had not heard him enter. Kale stood near the door, watching. "I'm not," she said. "A lie." He moved closer. "You are." His eyes traced her movements, her posture, her breath. Nothing escaped him. "I expected fear," he said. "I expected worse," she replied. He stopped. "Worse?" She turned to face him fully. "I expected a monster." The room went silent, the kind of silence that warned of danger. Kale stepped closer. Too close. "Disappointed?" he asked. His voice dropped slightly. Elena did not step back. Not yet. And that moment, that quiet exchange, became the beginning of something neither of them expected. Something that would not stay controlled. Something that would not stay simple. Because from that point on, this was no longer just a marriage. It was a shift. And neither of them understood how far it would go yet. The first night passed without touch, without closeness, without anything that resembled a marriage. Kale did not share the bed. He did not speak again after that moment. He simply existed in the same space, distant even when he stood only a few steps away. Elena lay awake longer than she expected, not because she feared him, but because she was trying to understand him. The silence around him was not empty. It was controlled, intentionnel. Everything about him felt chosen. Every word, every pause, every glance, even his distance, especially his distance. By the time sleep finally took her, she already knew one thing. This would not be simple. Morning came without warning. No gentle light, no warmth, just the quiet shift of shadows and the faint sound of movement beyond the chamber walls. Elena opened her eyes slowly. The room felt just as cold as it had the night before, but something had changed. The bed across from hers was empty. Kale was already gone. She sat up, steadying her breath. No guards inside, no attendants waiting, no instructions, nothing. It was deliberate. He had given her space, or maybe he had simply removed himself. Either way, the message was clear. You are here, but you are not part of me. Elena stood, adjusted her gown, and stepped out of the chamber. The moment she entered the corridor, everything shifted. Guards straightened instantly. Servants lowered their eyes. The air tightened. Not fear. Not entirely. Respect mixed with uncertainty. They did not know what she was yet, and that made her dangerous in a different way. She walked forward, slow, steady, observing. The palace stretched endlessly. Stone corridors, high arches, minimal decoration. Everything built for function, nothing built for comfort. It was not a home. It was a fortress, and everyone inside it behaved like they were still in a state of war. Elena noticed everything. The way servants moved quickly but quietly. The way guards stood stiff, rarely speaking. The way no one lingered in open spaces. This was not normal. This was controlled living. She turned a corner and stopped. A young servant stood near the wall, holding a tray. Her hands trembled. Not slightly. Noticeably. The tray shook with every breath she took. Elena stepped closer. The servant noticed instantly and dropped her gaze. "My queen," she whispered. Her voice was tight, fearful. Elena softened her tone. "You're all right." The girl shook her head slightly. I need to deliver this to the West Wing." Elena glanced at the tray. Food. Carefully prepared. Untouched. "You're afraid of dropping it." The girl hesitated, then nodded. Elena reached out and gently steadied the tray. "Walk with me." The servant blinked in surprise. "My queen?" I said, "Walk with me." Her voice was calm, not commanding, but firm enough to be followed. They moved together down the corridor. Step by step, the tray steadied. The girl's breathing slowed. "You're new," Elena said. "Yes." "What's your name?" "Lily." Elena nodded. "Lily, mistakes happen." The girl swallowed. "Not here." Elena glanced at her. "Everywhere." They reached the West Wing. The girl delivered the tray without incident. When she returned, her hands were steady, her posture different. Less fear, more control. "Thank you," she said quietly. Elena gave a small nod. "You did it." That was enough. A small moment, but in this palace, small moments mattered. Elena continued walking, and she started to understand something important. Fear ruled this place. Not openly, not loudly, but deeply, and Kale allowed it. Not out of cruelty, out of structure, out of control. That made it harder to challenge. Because it wasn't chaos. It was order, but it was the wrong kind. Later that day, Elena entered the dining hall. Kale was already there, seated, waiting. The table was long, too long, distance built into the design. She took her seat across from him. Silence settled immediately. Servants moved quickly, placing food with precision. No one spoke. No one lingered. Then they were gone, leaving only the two of them. Elena looked at the table, then at him. "You eat like this every day?" Kale did not look up immediately. "Yes." No conversation. "No need." She leaned back slightly. "That's inefficient." That got his attention. His eyes lifted slowly. "In what way?" "You have information in front of you every day," she said, "and you ignore it." Silence. He watched her. "Explain." She gestured lightly. "People serve you, move around you, listen, observe, and you don't ask them anything. They are not advisors. They are still sources." His gaze sharpened. "You think I lack awareness? I think you limit it." The words landed clean, direct, no hesitation. Kale studied her longer this time. Not dismissing, not reacting, processing. "You speak like you've ruled before," he said. "I speak like I've watched people," she replied. A pause. Then, "You assume too much, and you ignore too much." Silence returned, but it felt different now, less empty, more active. Then, "What would you ask?" he said. That was new. Elena leaned forward slightly. "Simple things." "Sujas?" "What people fear." His expression did not change. Fear maintains order. Fear hides truth. He held her gaze. "And truth disrupts control." She nodded slightly. "Yes." Another pause. Then, "Eat," he said. Conversation over, but not dismissed. Later that evening, Kale stood in the training courtyard, watching. Warriors moved in perfect formation. Precise strikes. Controlled movements. No wasted motion. No hesitation. Everything as it should be. Everything exactly how he built it. Then, a shift. Movement at the edge of the courtyard. He turned slightly. Elena stood there, watching. Not interfering. Not speaking. Just observing. He let her stay. Minutes passed. Then she stepped forward, closer to the training line. One of the younger warriors hesitated. Just for a second. His timing slipped. A minor mistake. But in this place, mistakes mattered. Kale noticed. So did she. The warrior reset quickly. But the moment stayed. After training ended, Kale approached her. "You disrupt focus." She met his eyes. "I reveal pressure." "That is not your role." "That depends." Silence. Then, "You watch too closely," he said. "I pay attention," she replied. "You look for flaws. I look for truth." Another pause. Then, "You will not interfere with training." "I didn't." "You changed it." "I exposed it." His jaw tightened slightly, but he did not argue further. Because part of him knew she was not wrong. That night, he thought about it, about the warrior, about the hesitation, about the pressure, and about her. She saw things others missed, or maybe things others ignored. Days passed, and the pattern continued. Elena moved through the palace, speaking, listening, changing small things. Nothing loud, nothing obvious, but enough. Servants began to move with less fear. Guards spoke more freely when she passed. The kitchen grew louder, lighter. Even laughter returned. Quiet, but real. And Kale noticed all of it. He noticed everything. One evening, a tray shattered in the main hall. The sound echoed sharply. Silence followed instantly. Everyone froze. Kale stood nearby, watching. The servant dropped to her knees, shaking, waiting. Elena stepped forward. "It's all right," she said. She knelt, helped gather the broken pieces. "No one is hurt," she added, her voice steady, calm. The servant looked at her like she didn't understand what was happening. Because this was not how things worked here. Kale said nothing, but he watched. Every movement, every reaction, every shift in the room, and something changed again. Not loudly, but clearly. Fear loosened, just enough. Later that night, "You interfere too much," he said. Elena looked up. "I help. You change structure. I improve it." "Based on what authority?" "Based on observation." His gaze hardened slightly. "You assume your perspective is correct. I test it." Silence. Then, "You are not careful," he said. She held his eyes. "You are too careful." That line stayed. Because it was true. He controlled everything, measured everything. But control had limits, and she was pushing them. Slowly, consistently, without fear, and that was what made her different. Not her words, not her actions, her lack of fear. That unsettled him more than anything else. Because fear was predictable. Fear could be managed. But she did not respond to it, and that made her unpredictable. And that made her dangerous. The change did not happen all at once. It moved slowly, quietly, like something shifting beneath the surface where no one could see it yet. But Kale felt it, every day, in small ways that refused to leave him alone. It started with awareness, not of his enemies, not of his kingdom, of her, Elena Whitmore. She did not ask for permission. She did not wait for approval. She moved through his palace as if she understood something deeper than rules. And the worst part, people responded to her, not out of fear, not out of obligation, but because they wanted to. That alone unsettled him. Because loyalty built on fear was predictable. Loyalty built on choice was not. And Kale did not like unpredictability. Not in his court. Not in his kingdom. Not in his life. Yet she brought it with her without even trying. Or maybe she was trying. That thought stayed longer than it should. One morning, Kale stood by the high balcony overlooking the inner courtyard. Below him, guards rotated shifts. Precise. Disciplined. Exactly as expected. But something else caught his attention. Movement near the lower corridor. Elena, walking with two servants. Not behind them. Not above them. Beside them. Talking. Listening. He could not hear the words. But he saw the reaction. The way the servants stood straighter. The way their expressions shifted. Less tension. More ease. That was not normal. Not here. Not under his rule. He watched longer than he intended. Long enough to notice something he had ignored for years. The difference between control and trust. He turned away, but the image stayed. Later that day, he called for a report. "Status of internal order," he said. The captain answered quickly. "No disturbances, Your Majesty." "Morale." A pause. The captain hesitated. "Stable." Kale's eyes narrowed slightly. "Clarify." The captain straightened. "There has been a change." "What kind of change?" "Less tension among staff." Silence. Kale said nothing, but the captain continued. "They speak more openly, move more freely." "And this concerns you?" Another hesitation. "No, Your Majesty. It is simply different." Different. That word again. It followed her everywhere. Kale dismissed him, but he did not forget. That evening, Elena entered the library, one of the few places in the palace that held quiet without pressure. Rows of old books lined the walls, knowledge stored in silence. She ran her fingers lightly across the spines as she walked. Reading titles. Studying. Learning. She did not hear him enter, but she felt it. The shift in the air. "You spend time where there is no influence," Kale said. She turned. "Knowledge is influence." He stepped closer. "You prefer books to people?" "I prefer understanding." Silence. Then, "You already assume much," he said. "I confirm what I assume," she replied. His gaze sharpened slightly. "You speak as if everything can be learned. Everything can be understood," she said. "Not everything." She held his eyes. "Then you have not looked long enough." That line stayed, because it was not a challenge. It was a statement, and Kale did not respond, because part of him knew there were things he had stopped looking at. Long ago, days passed, and the pattern deepened. Elena's presence continued to shift the palace. Small things, quiet things, but consistent. Servants no longer avoided eye contact. Guards no longer stiffened as sharply when she passed. Even the air felt different, less tight, less controlled. Kale noticed. He always noticed. But now, he began to question it. Not as a threat, as a possibility. That was new. One afternoon, Kale entered the training grounds earlier than usual. Warriors were already in motion, blades clashing, footwork precise, everything in order, until a misstep. A young warrior slipped slightly during a turn, recovered quickly. But Kale saw it. Before he could speak, Elena did. She stepped forward, not into the center, but close enough. The warrior stiffened, not from fear, from awareness. "You're thinking too much," she said calmly. The warrior blinked, confused. "My queen? You're anticipating the next move instead of finishing the one you're in." Silence. Kale watched closely. The warrior reset, tried again. This time, cleaner, sharper, more controlled. The difference was clear. Kale stepped forward. "Training continues without interruption," he said. His voice cut through the moment. Firm. Final. Elena stepped back, but her eyes met his. Not defensive. Not apologetic. Certain. That certainty unsettled him. Because she was right. And she knew it. "Ladder. You interfere again," he said. "I observe," she replied. "You influence outcome. I improve it. You overstep. You underuse what you have." Silence. Heavy. "You speak as if this kingdom lacks strength," he said. "I speak as if it can be stronger." His eyes narrowed slightly. "And you define strength how?" "Not fear alone," she said. That word again. Fear. It followed every conversation, every interaction, every shift. "You believe fear is weakness," he said. "I believe fear is limited," she replied. Silence. "Then, you are not from this world," he said. She tilted her head slightly. "No, I see it differently." Another pause. "Then, that makes you dangerous." She did not look away. So does power. That exchange stayed with him longer than expected, because it did not feel like opposition anymore. It felt like something else. Something closer. Something sharper. Something that did not fit into control. That night, a storm hit the kingdom. Heavy rain, thunder rolling across the sky, lightning cutting through darkness. Elena stood near the window, watching, not flinching, not moving. Kale entered quietly. "You do not avoid storms," he said. She didn't turn. "They remind me of something." "What?" "That control is temporary." Silence. He stepped closer. "Control is necessary. Not always. Without it, there is chaos. Without balance, there is damage." Their eyes met. Lightning flashed. For a brief moment, the light revealed something different in his expression. Not softness, but something less rigid. "You challenge everything," he said. "I question what I see," she replied. "You assume you see clearly." "I listen before I decide." Silence again. "Then, you are not afraid of me," he said. It was not a question. She answered anyway. "No." That word hit harder than expected, because it was true, and he felt it. Not as disrespect, as something else, something unfamiliar. Trust. He turned away, but that word stayed, because trust was not something he gave, and not something he expected. But she carried it without hesitation, and that changed something inside him, slowly, quietly, but undeniably. The next morning, a messenger arrived, urgent, breathless. "Your Majesty, there is movement at the northern border." Kale stood instantly. Details. Unconfirmed threat. Possible rogue activity. Villages requesting protection. Kale's expression hardened. "Prepare forces." Elena stepped forward. "Wait." The room froze. No one interrupted him. No one. Kale turned slowly. "You speak out of place." She held his gaze. "Send scouts first. They attacked my land. They may be desperate." "You assume again." You react too fast. Silence. Sharp. Dangerous. Kale stepped closer. You question my rule. I question your decision. The tension between them shifted. Closer. Stronger. More personnel. You would have me hesitate, he said. I would have you understand. Silence. Then, send scouts, he ordered. The guard moved immediately. The decision changed. Not fully, but enough. Elena exhaled slightly. A small shift, but a real one. Kale looked at her. You influence too much. She met his eyes. You listen more than you admit. For a moment, he did not deny it, and that was the clearest sign of change yet. Something was shifting inside him. Not loudly, not completely, but enough to matter. The shift became impossible to ignore, not because it was loud, but because it was constant. Kale felt it in every corridor, in every interaction, in the way the palace breathed differently, and in the way his attention kept returning to her. Elena Whitmore. She did not demand space. She did not force influence. Yet she changed everything she touched. And that was the problem, because Kale had built this kingdom on control, measured decisions, calculated outcomes. Nothing moved without reason. Nothing changed without intent. But she moved without permission, and the kingdom followed. That was not supposed to happen. That could not happen. Yet it was. One evening, Kale walked through the inner corridors without announcement. No guards ahead. No warning. He preferred it that way. It revealed truth. Not rehearsed order. Not forced perfection. Truth. He turned a corner and paused. Voices. Soft. Unrestricted. He moved closer. Hidden by the archway. Elena stood with a group of servants. Not above them. Not distant. With them, one of them laughed. Quiet. Careful. But real. Kale had not heard laughter in these halls in years. He watched. The servants spoke freely. Their posture relaxed. Their movements natural. This was not fear. This was something else. And it unsettled him more than anything. Because he had not ordered it. He had not controlled it. He stepped forward. The shift was immediate. Silence. Rigid posture. Eyes lowered. The laughter vanished. Gone. Just like that. Elena turned. Their eyes met. You walk without sound, she said. You speak without caution, he replied. Silence followed. The servants stepped back, waiting, expecting correction, punishment, control. But it did not come. Kale's gaze moved across them, then back to her. You dismiss them, he said. Elena nodded slightly. You can go. They left quickly, but not in panic. That alone was different. Kale noticed. He noticed everything. You change behavior, he said. I allow it, she replied. You weaken discipline. I remove fear. Silence. You assume fear is unnecessary, he said. I know it is not the only way, she replied. His eyes held hers. Longer this time. Studying, not dismissing. Then, you do not understand what built this place. She stepped closer. And you do not see what it is becoming. That line stayed. Because it was not defiance. It was observation. And Kale did not respond. Because part of him saw it too. Later that night, Kale stood alone in the war room. Maps spread wide. Reports stacked. Everything in place. Everything controlled. Yet his focus shifted. Not to threats. Not to borders. To her. That alone frustrated him. He did not allow distraction. He did not allow uncertainty. But she introduced both. And he could not remove it. A knock interrupted his thoughts. Enter. A guard stepped in. Your Majesty, the Northern Scouts have returned. Kale turned. Report. Movement confirmed. Not rogues. Organized group. Numbers unclear. Kale's expression hardened. Position? Advancing slowly. Testing boundaries. Silence. Kale processed quickly. They're studying us. Yes, Your Majesty. Prepare defensive lines. Increase patrols. The guard nodded, then hesitated. There is more. Kale's gaze sharpened. Speak. They avoided confrontation. They observed, then withdrew. That changed things. This was not random. This was strategy. Kale dismissed the guard, but the information stayed. Because it meant one thing. This was coming, and it would not be simple. He left the war room, and found her, standing near the balcony, watching the night. You knew, she said without turning. About what? That something was building. He stepped closer. You assume again. I pay attention, she replied. Silence. Then, There is movement at the border, he said. She nodded slightly. I thought so. You are not surprised. I listen, she said. A pause. What will you do? She asked. Prepare. For war? For possibility. She turned. That is different. Yes. Another shift. Small, but real. You are changing, she said. His eyes narrowed slightly. I am adapting. She held his gaze. That is change. Silence, but not empty. Then, you should remain inside, he said. Why? Because this will escalate. She didn't move. I won't hide. That is not your decision. It is. Tension filled the space. You underestimate the threat, he said. You underestimate your people, she replied. That hit, because it connected to everything else. Everything she had been showing him. Silence followed. Then, we prepare, he said. Not arguing, not agreeing, but moving forward. That alone mattered. Days passed. Preparation intensified. Guards doubled. Training increased. Scouts moved constantly. The palace shifted again. But this time, fear returned. Not fully, but enough. Elena saw it, felt it. She moved through the halls, speaking, steadying, holding balance. Because she understood something Kale was still learning. Fear spreads fast, but so does calm, and she chose calm. One afternoon, a scream broke through the palace. Sharp, sudden, real. Kale moved instantly. No hesitation, no delay. He followed the sound. Fast, focused, danger ready. He reached the lower corridor and saw her. Elena knelt beside a young servant. The girl shook uncontrollably, tears falling. He was here, she whispered. I saw him. Kale stepped forward. Who? The girl froze. Fear surged. Not from the threat. From him, Elena noticed. She shifted slightly, positioning herself between them. Subtle, but clear. Kael saw it, and something inside him reacted. Not anger, something sharper. He won't hurt you, Elena said softly. The girl hesitated. Then, a rogue, inside. Silence fell. That was not possible. Not without failure. Kale's voice turned cold again. Seal the exits. Search every corridor. Guards moved instantly. The girl continued shaking. Elena held her steady. You're safe, she repeated. Kale watched. And for the first time, he saw it clearly. Fear directed at him. Not respect. Not loyalty. Fear. It settled deeper than expected. Later, the rogue was found. Weak. Injured. Barely standing. Kale stood over him. Who sent you? The rogue laughed weakly. No one. I was starving. Kale raised his hand. Ready. Instinct. Control. End the threat. Wait. Elena's voice cut through. Everything stopped. Kale did not lower his hand. Move. She didn't. He's not a threat. He entered my palace. He was dying. Their eyes locked. Tension filled the space. You defend him, Kale said. I see him. The rogue collapsed. Too weak to speak. Silence. Heavy. Kale's hand slowly lowered. Take him, he ordered. Feed him, then question him. The guards moved. Elena exhaled. Relief. Real. Kale turned to her. You test limits. You listen more than you admit. A pause. You stood between me and a threat. He wasn't a threat. He was unknown. She stepped closer. And you chose not to kill him. Silence. That was the moment. Clear. Undeniable. Change. Not forced. Not demanded. Chosen. The decision stayed with him. Not the order. Not the command. The moment. The pause before it. The choice. Kale had faced countless threats before. Enemies. Traitors. Rogues. Each one ended the same way. Fast. Clean. Final. No hesitation. No second thought. But this time, he hesitated. And he knew exactly why. Elena Whitmore. She stood in front of him without fear. She questioned him without hesitation. And in that moment, she changed his decision. That alone should have angered him. But it didn't. It unsettled him instead. Because it meant something had shifted inside him. Something he did not fully control. And that was dangerous. Very dangerous. The rogue survived. Fed. Stabilized. Guarded. And questioned. Kale stood in the interrogation chamber. Silent. Watching. The rogue leaned against the wall. Weak. But aware. You crossed into my territory, Kale said. The rogue nodded slightly. I had no choice. There is always a choice. Not when something is chasing you. That changed the room. Kale's gaze sharpened. What is chasing you? The rogue hesitated, then spoke. A warband. Silence. Kale stepped closer. Explain. They're not like normal packs, the rogue said. They move together. They plan. They don't fight unless they need to. Kale listened. Carefully. They took smaller territories first. Quietly. No warning. And now? They're moving toward stronger kingdoms. A pause. Toward yours. The words settled. Heavy. Real. Kale did not react outwardly, but his mind moved fast. Calculating. Positioning. Preparing. Numbers? Unknown. But enough. Leader? The rogue shook his head. I've never seen him, but they follow without question. That alone meant something. Control. Absolute control. Kale understood that kind of leadership, which meant this was not random. This was deliberate. He turned. Double patrols. Send scouts beyond the ridge. I want eyes on everything. Guards moved instantly. The shift had begun. War was coming. And this time, it would not be simple. Kale left the chamber and found her. She stood in the outer corridor, waiting. You heard, she said. Yes. She studied his face. You believe him. I believe the pattern. Silence. What will you do? She asked. Prepare. For war? For control. She stepped closer. Those are not the same. He met Herr Gaza. They are when survival is involved. She shook her head slightly. If you respond with force first, you confirm their strategy. And if I don't, I expose weakness. Or patience. Silence. Tension built. Stronger now. More direct. They are moving toward us, Kale said. That is not a request. That is intent. And you don't know why? She replied. I don't need to. That's where you're wrong. That landed. Because she didn't hesitate. She didn't soften it. She didn't step back. She challenged it directly. You believe understanding changes outcome, he said. I know it can, she replied. And if it doesn't? Then you fight knowing why. Silence. That answer stayed. Because it did not reject war. It refined it. And Kale saw that. Even if he didn't admit it. We prepare both, he said finally. Another shift. Another adjustment. Elena nodded slightly. That's enough. That word stayed. Enough. Not perfect. Not complete. But movement. Days passed quickly. Preparation intensified across the kingdom. Scouts moved in wider circles. Reports came in faster. Training grew harder. More focused. The palace tightened again. Fear began to return. Slow. Quiet. But spreading. Elena felt it immediately. The way servants moved faster. The way voices lowered again. The way tension crept back into every corridor. She didn't ignore it. She moved through it. Speaking. Grounding. Holding balance. Because she understood something, Kale was still learning. Fear grows in silence. And silence had returned. One evening, Kale stood in the courtyard watching training. The intensity had changed. Strikes were harder. Movements faster. But something was off. Tension. Not focus. Pressure. Not precision. He saw it clearly now. Because she had shown him how to see it. Elena stepped beside him. You see it, she said quietly. Yes. They're preparing for fear, not for battle. They are preparing for both. No, she said. They're reacting. Silence. They're anticipating loss, she added. That line stayed. Because it was true. Kyle turned slightly. And you would change that how? Remind them what they protect. They already know. They forgot. Silence. Then. Speak to them, she said. That stopped him. I lead them. You command them, she replied. Different. He looked at her. Long. Measured. You expect me to change approach. I expect you to adapt. That word again. Adapt. Change. Shift. It followed him everywhere now. And it always led back to her. That night, he did something different. He stepped into the center of the courtyard. The warriors stopped instantly. Watching. Waiting. Kale stood still for a moment. Then spoke. Strength is not fear, he said. Silence filled the space. You do not fight because you are afraid. His voice carried. Clear. Controlled. You fight because this is yours. A pause. This kingdom. These people. This ground. The warriors held still. Listening. You do not defend fear. Another pause. You defend what matters. The shift was immediate. Subtle. But real. Posture changed. Focus returned. Something steadied. Elena watched from the edge. And for the first time, she didn't speak, because he understood, and that mattered more. Days later, a scout returned. Injured. Urgent. They're close, he said. How close? Kale asked. Less than a day. Silence. It was here. The moment. The decision point. Kale turned. Prepare the front line. Elena stepped forward. You still have a choice. No, he said. This is the choice. She held his gaze. Then make it right. Silence. That was all she said. But it stayed. Because it wasn't about stopping him anymore. It was about how he moved forward. The next morning, the warband arrived. Dark figures lined the ridge. Still. Silent. Watching. Kale stood at the front of his army. Unshaken. Unmoved. Elena stood behind. Watching him. Studying. Because this was the moment that would define everything. The enemy leader stepped forward. Tall. Controlled. Confident. You are the Lycan King, he said. I am. We came for your land. Kale didn't react. You will leave with nothing. A pause. Then. We will see. Tension built instantly. Ready to break. But before it did, Elena stepped forward. Gasps moved through the line. Guards reacted instantly. Stop her! But she kept walking. Straight between both sides. Enough, she said. Silence fell. Sharp. Immediate. Kale's voice cut through. Elena. Back. She didn't move. You don't need to do this, she said. The enemy leader watched her. Curious. And who are you? Elena. His queen. Silence. Kale's jaw tightened. You risk too much, he said. She didn't turn. I trust enough. That line hit. Harder than anything else. Because she said it openly. Without hesitation. Without doubt. Trust. Given freely. And in that moment, Kyle felt something shift completely. Because he could not ignore it anymore. He did not want her hurt. Not by them. Not by anyone. The enemy leader smiled. Then, he signaled. Attack. Chaos exploded. Blades clashed. Shouts filled the air. Everything moved at once. Kale reacted instantly. Fast. Precise. Controlled. But different. Because his focus was no longer singular. It split. Between battle and her. A blade moved toward Elena. Fast. Direct. Kale saw it. And in that moment, he chose. Not strategy. Not control. Hair. He moved faster than anyone expected. Intercepted. Blocked. Destroyed the attacker in a single strike. Then pulled her back. Hard. Stay behind me, he said. His voice had changed. Not cold. Not distant. Protective. And that changed everything. The moment he pulled her behind him, something irreversible settled in his chest. Not strategy. Not instinct. Something deeper. Something he could not push aside anymore. The battlefield roared around them. Steel clashed. Shouts tore through the air. The ground shook under the force of bodies colliding. Weapons striking. Power meeting power. Kale moved like he always had. Fast. Precise. Unstoppable. But this time, there was a difference. Every movement had two purposes. Win, and keep her alive. Elena, stay close, he said. His voice cut through the chaos. Firm. Controlled. But no longer cold. She stayed behind him. Close enough to feel the force of every strike. Close enough to see what others feared. The king who never hesitated. But now, he was not just fighting. He was protecting. An enemy broke through the line. Fast. Aggressive. Focused. Kale stepped forward. Intercepted. Eliminated. No delay. No wasted motion. Another followed. Then another. Each one fell. But the pressure built. The warband did not break easily. They moved with structure. With intent. With discipline. This was not a scattered attack. This was planned. Kale saw it clearly now. Every formation. Every shift. Every attempt to separate him from his center. From her. That realization sharpened everything. They're targeting the core, he said. A captain moved beside him. We're holding the line. Hold tighter, Kale replied. Then, movement. The enemy leader stepped forward again. Uninjured. Unshaken. Watching. His eyes locked onto Elena. Kyle saw it, and something in him snapped into focus. Not anger. Not rage. Possession. Not ownership. Protection. The enemy leader moved. Fast. Direct. Toward her. Kale reacted instantly. Intercepted. Their clash echoed across the field. Force met force. Power against power. The enemy leader smiled slightly. You fight differently now. Kale said nothing. You protect something. Another strike. Blocked. Countered. That makes you predictable, the enemy leader added. Kale's eyes darkened. No, he said. A sudden shift. He moved faster. Stronger. More precise. Because now, he was not just calculating. He was choosing. Every strike carried intent. Every movement carried weight. The fight intensified. Blow after blow. Neither stepping back. Neither yielding. The enemy leader was strong. Skilled. Disciplined. But Kale was something else. He adapted. He watched. He learned. And then, he ended it. One opening. One moment. One decisive strike. The enemy leader fell. Silence spread. The battlefield slowed. Then stopped. The remaining enemies broke formation. Retreated. Disorganized. Defeated. It was over. For now. Kale stood still, breathing steady. Eyes scanning. Ensuring. Then, he turned. Elena stood behind him. Unharmed. The tension in his body released. Not fully, but enough. You stayed, he said. She met his eyes. I trust you. That word again. Trust. It landed differently now, because he had felt the weight of it, and he had answered it. Not with words, with action. The army began to regroup. Voices returned. Movement resumed, but Kale did not move. Not yet. He stepped toward her, closer than before. You should have stayed back, he said. She shook her head. You needed to see it. See what? She held his gaze. That you are not just control. Silence. And you needed to feel it, she added. Feel what? Her voice softened. That you care. That word stayed. Care. He could not deny it. Not after that moment. Not after that choice. Because when danger came, he did not hesitate. He chose her. And he would choose her again. Every time. If you're still watching, subscribe now. Drop a comment he changed if you felt that moment, or still cold if you think it was instinct. Share this story with someone who loves intense turning points and emotional payoffs. Days later, the kingdom felt different, not softer, not weaker, stronger, because something had shifted at the core. The people moved with purpose, not fear. They spoke, not cautiously, but freely. And when they looked at their king, they saw something new, not just power, presence. Elena stood beside him on the balcony. The kingdom stretched wide before them. Alive, steady, changing. You changed this place, Kale said. She shook her head. We changed it. A pause. I did not want this marriage, he said. I know. I expected silence. I know. I expected distance. She looked at him. I know. Silence. Then, you changed everything, he said. She smiled slightly. So did you. That was the truth. Not sudden. Not easy. But real. He turned toward her. For the first time, there was no distance in his eyes. No wall. Only something steady. Something chosen. I do not regret this, he said. She held his gaze. Neither do I. The wind moved around them. Soft. Calm. A different kind of silence settled. Not empty. Full. He reached for her hand. Not out of duty. Not out of expectation. But because he wanted to, and she did not pull away. Below them, the kingdom stood, balanced, not ruled by fear alone, but by something stronger, understanding, and at the center of it, a king who learned to feel, and a queen who refused to disappear. Subscribe now for more intense werewolf romance stories. Drop your favorite moment in the comments. Share this with someone who loves powerful love stories and strong endings, because sometimes, the strongest kings are not the ones who control everything. They are the ones who choose what matters.